Snowy today, temps in the 30s. Won't stop the Raptors' intrepid and rabid fans from jamming their gym in hopes their team begins a postseason 2-0 for the first time ever. The East 2 seed is back to work tonight in Boston. The Celtics needed an extra 5 minutes to beat the Bucks in Game 1. We'll get into their Game 2 tonight as well. And later on in Portland, the Pelicans are playing with house money tonight. Pels swiped home court in Game 1 and would love nothing more than to bring a 2-0 lead back to New Orleans. Hey, everybody, and welcome into Game Time on a playoff Tuesday. David Griffin right there, Greg Anthony right there. I'm Matt Weiner. Good to have you right there. In an hour or so, Game 2 of the Wizards-Raptors series tips right here on NBA TV. Toronto finally broke that odd streak of Game 1 losses. Just a weird thing. At least some of the pressure is off as they take the floor tonight.
You can never get comfortable. Every single win you get in the postseason, you got to treat the next one 10 times more important. You know, you can't get comfortable just because you got to win. You know, you got to understand. You got to take it to another level every single game that we can.
Anybody can beat anybody at this time of year. What Miami did to Philly last night, just went and beat them up. Wade had an out-of-body experience last night, and so we can't let them come into our building and do that to us.
It's a chess match. You know, understand what moves worked last game, what moves they're going to try to take away and try to exploit something that we didn't get a chance to exploit last game. You know, every single game is going to be different in the series. You know, and tonight is going to be much different from last game, but as long as we bring the energy and the aggressiveness on both ends, you know, we'll figure out a way.
Toronto won Game 1, 114-106. They finished strong. They closed the game 26-15, and they got the win without exceptional games from their star backcourt of DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. So what did we learn? Everyone is quick to say it's only Game 1. It's only one game in. What did we learn from Game 1?
For me, I learned that the Raptors bench is legitimately the reason why I think they have a chance to win it all. If their bench play and their production is that good, you know, it's always a great sign when you win games when your best players aren't at their best in the postseason. That's right. A real telltale sign for me that the team is legitimate. And then I thought defensively, in the second half, Kyle Lowry, who didn't shoot it well, right, but he was phenomenal. He was really a disruptor on the floor and found a way to impact the game, which we hadn't seen from Kyle Lowry in prior seasons from a postseason standpoint. If he hadn't shot it well in the past, he didn't play well. And I felt in Game 1 he found a way to play well when he didn't play well, meaning maybe he didn't shoot it or have the impact in terms of scoring, but he had his handprints all over that game in the second half in particular, and he was able to do that because of how good their bench was over the course of that game.
Also 3 or 4 assists in the fourth quarter as they put the game away. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, so one thing that really stood out for me was as good as their bench was, they doubled up the Washington bench 42-21 from a scoring standpoint, and they did that without Fred VanVleet playing. Right. And VanVleet will play tonight. That makes them that much deeper, particularly in crunch time and in key moments of games. If you're a Raptors fan, I think you feel infinitely better when Fred is on the court. And for them to get through that game without him, to sort of vanquish the Game 1 demons in the way that they did, they've got to feel like they're pretty well positioned right now moving forward in the series.
Let's take a little deeper dive on Game 2 and say hello to Jared Greenberg, who's in chilly Toronto for us tonight. He'll be on the sideline calling it with Pete Pranica and Steve Smith. And Jared, as Griff just mentioned, the Raptors finally got over the Game 1 hump. How liberating is it to have that particular monkey off their backs?
It's huge, but, you know, Dwayne Casey wants the guys to remember that feeling of being desperate. He wants them to remember what it is like to be down 1-0 in a series, feeling like you have to win, because Coach Casey feels that's exactly how Washington's going to approach this tonight. So he wants his guys to treat this one like a Game 7, just like Kyle Lowry said, Matt, they're going to treat Game 1.
Oh, we just talked about the Toronto bench. So good again in Game 1, plus 21 without Fred VanVleet, who is available tonight after overcoming that shoulder injury. Is he on full minutes? Is he on limited minutes? What's his status?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Matt, we just asked that question to Dwayne Casey, and he said there's no restrictions on on Fred at all. They plan on using him in his regular rotation, which is amazing when you think about what he's meant to this team. He is really first or second in almost every statistical category in terms of raw numbers in the fourth quarter. He's only second to DeMar DeRozan in fourth quarter scoring so far this season. He leads the team in fourth quarter minutes, and that was the big question in Game 1 on Saturday. When they were coming down the stretch trying to close out the Wizards, they typically had Van Fleet on the court, and he brings such a calming effect, Coach Casey says, to this team, even just in his second year. He's somebody that gets Kyle Lowry off the ball. He's somebody that's given Kyle Lowry a break this year, which has helped out the team so much. So the fact that they were able to close out Game 1 without Fred Van Fleet was huge. The fact that they have him tonight is even bigger.
Yeah, such a huge luxury. Lowry's played, 4 or 5 minutes fewer per game than he did all last season. Wizards bench has been a problem for years now, and it took a hit before the playoffs began with the loss of Jody Meeks, who was suspended by the league. They signed Ty Lawson, who spent the season in China. He did not play in Game 1. When can we expect him to see him make his Washington debut?
I think you're going to see him tonight, Matt. I think Ty Lawson is going to be somebody that the Wizards turn to just find a spark. And I think the key here is that the one advantage the Wizards feel like they can have against this very good defensive team is getting them back to chase them. And Wall is fast. We know Lawson, if nothing else, is incredibly explosive. And while many think that the best way to use Lawson is as a second guard off the bench, as somebody to give John Wall a break, I think we're even going to see Scott Brooks experiment with a three-guard lineup that has Wall, Lawson, and Beal out there because he wants the pace to be picked up tonight. He feels that is their best advantage over the Raptors.
Interesting. Should be fun. Game 2 tonight right here on NBA TV. You'll see Jared along with Pete Hanica and Steve Smith. Enjoy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, obviously the Wizards want to change a lot of things. Interesting that he used the word experiment this time of year, first round of the playoffs. Need to change the result and spent part of the 2 off days hoping to influence officials about the way the Raptors are refereed.
All I can go in and do is try to make them. I mean, not focus on trying to get fouled. Focus about not get calls or not, just try to finish plays. That's all I really can do. I think a couple of them, I did get fouled on. They came to me at halftime and said they missed 2 or 3 of them. I'd rather you not tell me about it. Just like the last 2-minute report, I'd rather you not tell me about it. Me as a player, I just got to do a better job of just not worrying about the fouls or contacts and just try to finish my plays like I usually do in the past.
They hold and grab a lot, and that's something that will be a different story tonight. And just making sure I'm constantly moving, making them tired, especially when I'm going to put Kyle on, just tire him out.
This is a time-honored playoff tradition, complaining about the officiating between games, the long off days between games along the way. I'm curious, from an organizational point of view, having run a team, how much influence do you feel like you can have, usually on particular areas of emphasis you'd like addressed?
Very little. I don't feel like it ever helped. And frankly, our culture really became what I envisioned Boston's as being. We're not going to make any excuses. The more you focus on things that are out of your control, the less control you have over those that are. And I think it's very important for Washington to just move past this. I think they've struggled so much to find chemistry and synergy when they're on the floor together. They're 2-6 since John came back.
Right.
And they're looking for answers. They're searching for answers. The answer is still make no excuses and just play ball. And I think if they can silence everything else around them, they'll be in a much better position.
Greg, do players feel like they're going to get their message out to the referees by talking about this stuff between games? Because you hear it every year.
Well, what you want to do, though, is make the concerns that you have from the officiating standpoint a point of emphasis for the official. So you can send the league tape. You can have those conversations. And the fact that, and John talked about it, the officials came to him, hey, you know what, we might have missed a couple.
Right.
And honestly, as a player, that's all you could ask for. When Bradley was talking about, they grab and hold, Washington might want to start grabbing and holding.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because last time I looked, Toronto shot 52 from 2 and 53 from 3.
Right. So
all that other stuff is irrelevant. You can't go out and let this team shoot the basketball at that level.
And you have to play the way the game is being officiated.
That's right. And listen, they have to be better. We even with as good as their bench was, I do still feel like Washington has the firepower to make this an interesting series. And obviously, with what happened in Game 1, they're going to have to be better tonight, regardless of who's going to play or not play for Toronto. They've got to defend that three-point line. They made 16 threes, did Toronto, in that game.
Right.
And they've also got to defend the paint better, because that's another area. Toronto dominated. I think they were plus 20 or plus 2 in the paint, but they gave up 50 paint points. And to me, you can't give up the rim and the three-point shot. You got to win one of those two decisively, particularly when you play on the road, where the home team tends to have more momentum, more confidence, play a little quicker, and therefore they tend to get a better whistle. So Washington's going to have to do very much what we saw from Miami. They're going to have to go out and dictate pace. They're going to have to go out and dictate the level of physicality that's going to be used. And if they do those things, I think they have a chance to even this thing up.
And the way the system works now, too, is you're supposed to make the other team, the league has to make the other team aware of those issues that you raise. So if I turn in something, they make the other team aware of the issues I'm raising. So there comes a point where there's a little bit of gamesmanship involved. I don't want to let you know what's working and getting under my skin. So again, I think to your point, there are enough things that they do control for them to focus on. They can let the officiating go.
It's one of the great head games this time of year.
For sure.
Much more to get to here on this hour-long pregame before we tip in Toronto. On the way, we'll get deeper into that deep Toronto bench and how they compare to some of the best lineups in the league.